Hey, what's up? Dave with Brazos Valley Strength, and I am pleased to finally introduce you to the Avancus Apex Power Shoe. This is for sure the best powerlifting shoe I've ever tried. Now, I am a little bit biased here. I think this whole review will at least have some degree of bias within it, but that's not really just because I am now going to be an athlete of this company, but it's because I said all of this. So if you're somebody out there who is in some way connected to a shoe manufacturer, I mean, notorious lift people, if you're watching this video, I mean, just do what you're doing. Make this sole, but make the construction of the upper construction not this, weird kind of flexible material. And personally, I love the high top. I don't tighten it very tight. I really don't like that restriction on my ankle. But again, the same thing that I said about kind of settling in certain places. I like feeling like this kind of the sides of my foot, especially when I'm pushing laterally. I don't want it to just be the very side of my foot itself. I like kind of having the support around, mid ankle, mid side of my foot overall. So if somebody would make that shoe, I would absolutely just sell it forever. I basically said, if somebody would make a very thin shoe, kind of like the Vivos, or a slipper that actually had a shoe kind of construction with laces, that I was gonna be all in. I am. This shoe checked all of those boxes. So at this point, I for sure am going to be all in behind this shoe. Not necessarily just because I am an athlete of theirs at this point, but I was involved in the creation of this shoe. This is not my company. I did not design this shoe on my own. I would say they were 95% of the way there before they reached out to me. So this shoe, I think, was being made before they ever saw my video in the first place. But I think that they were going for essentially the same things that I had already complained about, that they were already moving this direction. Then I think somebody showed them my video and they said, this guy will probably be a good resource for you, somebody who can really help promote the shoe. And obviously you guys are looking for the exact same things. They nailed it. So the first version of the shoe that I got, I guess, was this one right here. So very, very similar, pretty much the exact same design. It had a strap on it, little different sole, I guess, a little different design on the bottom. But as you can see, it was pretty much there. Most of my input, I guess, was quality control, I guess, and maybe even reassurance towards what the things that they were going for. I think that there are some instances that I actually kind of pushed in a different direction, because in my Vivo video, I said one of my critiques of the Vivos was that the sole was too thin and that it ended up losing some stability. So there was a moment when we were talking about these shoes that we were reducing the height of the total stack, the total, thickness, I guess, of the sole here, because I think the original ones that I had were like 6 millimeters thick. I think the Vivos are 3. And so we were talking about going lower and lower. And I said, yeah, look, lower is better, but not at the cost of stability. So where we ended up with these shoes is they are 4 millimeters thick versus Vivos being 3. I didn't like how thin the Vivos were. I thought, sure, look, if we're trading off all of the positives that we'll talk about in this video for 1 millimeter of thickness, that's not worth it. So I think at this point, we landed on something that is totally perfect. I actually don't know that there's any of the shoes, and I'll talk about some of the other ones here, but I don't think that there's any of these shoes that are thinner. So if you're just looking for a very, very thin shoe, this is gonna be it, with a trade-off of 1 millimeter for so many other positive things. 1 millimeter versus the thinnest shoe on the market. So I think that that's definitely worth talking about here. So as far as the design of the shoe itself, I don't know that it could be better. I'll talk about the high top versus low top thing, because that was something interesting. I had a good amount of questions about why there's no high top, and it was a question of mine originally too. And through our conversations, I think I was sold by the quality of the shoe itself. So the shoe is extremely well made. You can see pretty much the entire shoe is built like a tennis shoe. It's gonna be very stable. There's not gonna be really any stretch involved in the outer material. actually the top of the shoe, where your heel, or I guess your ankle, sits in the shoe, has some really nice padding, like a sneaker. Yeah, like genuinely, this shoe is very, very comfortable to wear. And it is 4 millimeters thick total. It comes with not a built-in, it comes with a small insole, but as usual, we just get rid of those. And then it has a small liner, I guess, on the inside to help with longevity of it there. I have been wearing these shoes. These are exactly the same. This was a pre-production model, so the logo isn't quite right and all that. Pre-production model. I wore these for like 3 or 4 months, training hard in them all the time. No changes at all in the quality of the construction. I didn't see any changes whatsoever. So as far as build quality, it's excellent. It's very, very good. And the rubber around the sole is just so supportive. And I think that they struck a very, very good balance here between having supportive edges, but also allowing your foot to settle a whole lot. So in my old shoe review videos, one of the main things that I was always critical of at times was a lot of the like wrestling shoes or you know, any shoe that was like more rigid. I'll talk about the Sabos because I have those. Any shoe that was more rigid and like kind of compressive, I guess, on your foot, I never really felt like I could settle all that well, or I didn't really mind on the wrestling shoes, particularly on deadlifts, not having that hard edge. I was okay with letting my foot like kind of settle where it wanted to, even kind of like roll on the side some. But squatting, I really care. I really do want that lateral support, and I want my feet, you know, or kind of my whole leg to not really feel like it's opening up too much or I'm sliding out. So I think that my criticism of the Sabos, and I'm glad that I did all these shoe review videos, because the Sabos ultimately ended up getting higher marks after going through a bunch of shoes, but they are relatively flexible. They're not bad. They have that outer supportive edge. The grip is not nearly as good. We can maybe compare right here. The grip is not nearly as good on the Sabos, but one of the design aspects of the Sabos, I think originally I was critical of the heel itself, or kind of like that I felt like I wasn't able to have my foot settle. But actually, in hindsight, it wasn't the exterior of the shoe, it's the inside of the shoe. And this is something that they advertise. They advertise that their goal with the inside of the shoe is to have some curvature in there so that your foot locks in, and this is what they told me, I talked to them about this, that your foot should lock in like it's going into a ski. So your foot is going to be very stable. Maybe that's good, but my feeling was that whenever I was lifting, it made me not really feel very natural. That it took me away from some of the kind of subconscious movements that my feet do, kind of settling into the shoe. So while I always wanted to like the shoe, it just never really got there for me, and I just never felt all that comfortable. And I think that always, my recommendation ended up always being the Reeboks. They're not really available. You just couldn't get them. But they also have a good solid edge around here, but there's no curvature on the inside so your foot could settle, but the shoe was well constructed on the outside. There's no stretch. It was just a good solid shoe. Great. Now, I think that this shoe improves on the Reebok in a lot of ways, kind of specifically for lifting. And maybe the one comparison here that I guess initially my impression that was it was going to be a negative was that it didn't have a high top. So I'm gonna come back to that a little bit. So this shoe, obviously very well structured. You're not gonna have any stretch on the shoe itself. And that's aided by the incredible grip on the bottom and the stability of the sole itself. Now, it's not too rigid. I can move it around. The sole is going to move some, but it's not as flexible as something like the Vivo. The Vivo is basically just super, super thin plastic or rubber or whatever. And my criticism there was that I just felt like stuff was rolling. I barely had any grip at all. It was a good, fine, thin shoe, but it didn't add any support. This one is a Vivo, but with excellent, excellent grip. You're not gonna find any better grip anywhere. I know people asked about like the Hyper Vs or something. I've never tried the Hyper Vs. I've held some, I've kind of looked at them. As far as the design of the sole, it looks very similar, right? The pattern is gonna cross the way that you'll be driving. if anybody has any grip issues with the sole of this shoe on any carpet whatsoever, I would just be shocked and maybe not believe you. But anyway, what you'll actually see here is that the design of the sole is effectively the same here as the Vivo. So if you like the wide toe box, if you like the wide sole of the Vivos, you're gonna be in great shape here. It's pretty much the same, except now it's supportive, which I asked for in the video. You know, I was like, great, cool, we have a wide shoe, mostly well made, but I just need support. So when I got the original shoe, I guess people will probably ask about the strap as well. But when I got the original shoe, I was skeptical if I was going to like a low top shoe. All my favorite shoes, the Reeboks obviously had that high top. I've lifted in high tops a lot. I also felt at times that one of my criticisms of something like the notorious slippers and even the Vivos was that they didn't have a high top. And I would say after like less than a week, you know, a few days of training with this shoe, I totally changed my mind. Now, I think that the high top does have some value. And I think at this point, I would certainly like to try a version of this shoe with a high top, and we've had discussions, or like a mid top. We've had discussions about that, and that may be coming down the line for people who are interested. But coming from a high top enthusiast, somebody who asked for high tops in all of these videos, I was sold very quickly because of the total support on the shoe. I didn't feel like my ankle was rolling. The shoe had me glued in place, or it had me glued in place, the shoe would be glued, and my foot was able to kind of settle inside of the shoe exactly where I wanted it to be and be supportive. My conversations with the people at Avancus, it was that we all kind of agreed that the high top does add some degree of kind of like mental feedback. But almost everyone that I know that wears high tops wears them loose, right? We have them kind of untied. We don't tie them up around our ankles. We're not really looking for ankle support, but having some of that feedback around your ankles is maybe positive. But from just a support standpoint, there's not gonna be a difference. And I like wholeheartedly, I'm absolutely biased. Like, you know, in the beginning I was like, I don't know, man, I want a high top. And they weren't high top, and I immediately was sold by all the other qualities, and I'm not really even looking back. And like, in a lot of ways, I guess at this point, even when we start trying the high tops, I like the look of the low top. I think it looks cool, you know? And so I think that part alone, you know, I don't think that there's gonna be a huge benefit from getting the high top. Maybe some people will like it a little bit more, but I really don't think from a functional level that it would make any difference. And I was sold right away on the stability and just the overall design of the shoe. The other thought with the change is that metatarsal strap. And I have been, in my previous reviews, definitely on record of basically saying, like, I don't care about it. The Sabos have them. They have a strap here, and they have a strap around the ankle, which, I mean, I've thought about cutting off at times because I don't want that tied around the ankle. But for me, the big metatarsal strap just kind of kept my laces in place. That's all I ever used it for. I never tied it down tight because I already didn't like how constricted that my foot was. So I'm of the opinion, obviously we made the design choice back then, is that the metatarsal strap doesn't really add anything, especially when the shoe already has good construction. So, you know, if you're using a slipper, it has to have the straps because that's the only thing that you're getting there. But the whole shoe is flexible enough around it, you know, I don't know, it's just not gonna be a very good trade-off. So, no high top, no strap, and the shoe wins over every other shoe out here as far as the functionality and the grip and everything. There's not a grippier shoe. There's not a more stable shoe. I mean, even comfort, it's way up there as far as its performance. It's great, you know. So obviously I'm biased, but excellent as far as the things that I was looking for. So it will be coming in a few different colorways. So we have the black and the white here. I'm using the white. I like the white the most. It looks the best on video, but here's the black for you. I didn't get a lot of B-roll, so maybe that's all you're gonna get. Also, you know, looks great, very well done with that. So either way, and there's gonna be more colors coming in the future. Hopefully, you know, this is just kind of the initial launch at this point, but there's gonna be a lot of stuff coming down the road. And you know, I think there's been a huge positive reception already. You know, people are kind of looking for these kind of things, and so obviously with a good launch initially, this really should take off and have a lot more options moving forward. So as far as some of the release details with the shoe, this video, the plan is to publish it a week before the actual launch. I don't know exactly when that is. I'm filming this obviously before all that. So I'll either just put it in the description of the video or like tag it or pin a comment or something, or maybe I'll just post it. You know, there's the release date. I'll put it in there in editing. So this video will be coming out a week from the release. Make sure that you follow me, David Wilson, on Instagram. Follow Avancus on Instagram. We're going to be doing some pre-release giveaways. We're going to be doing some pre-release kind of early sales and stuff. So if you want to make sure that you get them, we're not going to have a humongous stock initially. So, I mean, I would really encourage you to get moving with them. I will have a code. If you like these videos and everything, please use my code. Obviously, that will support me a whole lot, you know, and I'll keep standing these shoes, like I said, you know, previously. A few important things here, I guess, will be sizing and price. So I guess the sizing, what I would recommend is order true to size. I guess is probably the best recommendation. I got my size right initially. So they're just going to be in European sizes. There's going to be a conversion table there. I usually wear a 10.5. I mean, some shoes, I guess, that run a little bit tighter, 11s, I would say, generally speaking, a 10.5 is my size. So a 44 is what the Avancus shoe is for me, which is labeled as a 10. I think it's perfect. I don't think that I would want the shoe to be, I mean, it's perfect. I wouldn't want it to be any bigger or smaller. So if you are in between sizes, then I would recommend going that half size down. I think if your size is exactly perfect, then choose the one that, you know, is close enough. But if you're going to guess, a half size down is probably the way to go here. But generally speaking, true to size is probably the best thing to think, just first try. The price is going to be $90 US. So as far as, you know, competing with other shoes, you're not going to be able to beat it. My discount code obviously will also get you a little discount there. I think it'll come out to right around $80 or something. That should be a 10% discount with my code in there. So $90, $80 for this shoe brings it down to right around what even just like slippers cost. And these are so much better than slippers. And then comparing it to some of the other shoes are all in, you know, the 120 range for a lot of the other shoes. So just on quality, it's gonna win anyway, and then the price is just absolutely unbeatable here. So as far as the performance on every lift, I bet at this point you could probably guess that I don't have criticisms anywhere. They are absolutely perfect for any lift that you're doing. Squats and deadlifts, sumo deadlifts, conventional deadlifts, literally nothing that I could complain about whatsoever, regardless of stance width. They're super stable. Your foot can settle into them where you want, but it's supportive enough that it's going to stay there. It's great. Bench press is one that I guess personally, I may not use them. This is not a critique of the shoe. It's a critique of the way that I bench press. I've tried, I like bench pressing in flat shoes. I feel the best bench pressing in flat shoes. But with my feet very far behind me, I'm just not able to get my feet to look flat. It's not a fault of the shoe. I'm gonna discuss maybe the one criticism that the shoe has at this point. It's not a criticism, or it's not a fault of the shoe. I've tried a bunch of different flat shoes, and it always looks the same, especially if you're looking across my body at the far heel. That heel on the side of my foot looks up. It's no different on this shoe. So if you're somebody who does have that issue, I don't think that this shoe is gonna fix that for you. But if you're somebody who already benches in flats and you're not really having any issues with it, this shoe is not gonna have like the rolling issues. It's gonna be stable. It's gonna look flat. Like 100%, it's going to look flat. So, you know, I'll still probably bench press in heels just because I have to make it look good in competition. But the shoe is super grippy. One of the things that I've talked about previously was, you know, people who bench press with their feet way out in front of them and kind of having sliding issues, and that none of the other shoes really worked well for that. I already discussed it with the grip. You're solid there. Like even me gripping or doing it here just on the rubber, my feet maybe were like sliding just a little bit with my feet way out in front of me on the rubber. But if you have any sort of carpet, if you slide, like I said, I would be shocked. So the one critique that these shoes have had is that I guess people have expressed that the heel has a small rounding, it comes up just a little bit. And that to me is kind of a silly complaint. I could take any of these shoes. Well, even right here, we have the Sabos. They also come up on the heel right there. Any of the other shoes, they all kind of have some rounding right there. So on its own, I guess, like functionally, that rounding is not actually inside of the heel. Where your foot sits, and I think I'm gonna have some images of this, of just the sole of the shoe, but where your heel sits inside of the shoe is 100% flat. So any sort of rounding is happening outside of the actual structure of the shoe itself. And I think it looks a little bit more maybe visible, or like there is some awareness, I guess, of the small rounding of the heel just because of that hard edge, right? So the shoe obviously has the edge to have support. And then when it tapers back around to the end of the shoe curls up a little bit with the rubber right there, and it has that edge. And so like, okay, visually it's coming up, but like, I mean, what I just showed on the Sabos was theirs is every bit as prominent. So as far as functionality of the shoe, it's not it's literally not an issue. It's something I didn't even plan on putting it in the video because it's not an issue. So I think in the future, the plan is to make that come a little bit flatter, like just because there's really not a reason not to. But I don't know, I kind of feel like it's so small. Like even just looking at it right now, I'm still kind of like, I don't know, baffled by it a little bit. And I just don't think that there's any force that we're ever having, squat, bench, or deadlift that actually is like on the back of the shoe that would impact the stability of the shoe in any way. I think potentially the critique would be on bench press to where the heel may look slightly up. And I think actually some of this happened because the main person who posted about this on their story, we had a conversation because they had been asking me about my heels when I was bench pressing. And I said, look, man, it's an issue just with any flat shoe. I don't bench press with flat shoes and meets because of this issue. I think they received the shoe and saw that it was like, there's a little bit of rounding to it, but I don't know. I think they all have a little bit of rounding. And you can see in the videos that I'm posting, if you have your feet in other places, the sole of the shoe is flat. It looks flat. And the rules, as far as I know, like every federation, basically say that the feet need to be as flat as the sole of the shoe will allow. It doesn't look rounded to me. And you can see in the pictures or whatever that I'm posting right here that under ordinary circumstances, lifting it, you're just not going to see it. So I think that's like the only critique of the shoe that anybody has had at this point. And to me, it's not an issue. I don't think that I would worry about it. I guess in future designs, it's going to be something that is going to be looked at, but I've had conversations with them and my stance towards them is the same as what I'm saying right now. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's fine. So at the end of the day, this shoe, the Avancus Apex Power Shoe, is the best flat powerlifting shoe. I don't even know that I need to say that. It's the best powerlifting shoe available. And as far as I know, I think there's some other shoes coming out relatively soon. I don't know any area that they would be able to improve on in this. And also just with conversations with kind of like the future of what's going to be going on here. Anything that you'd be looking for, if you'd be looking for different colorways, if you'd be looking for some high tops, like that stuff is probably coming. But honestly, I wouldn't wait. Like I was looking for some of those things initially. You don't need them. This shoe is perfect. If you are wearing flat shoes, this will check every single box that anybody would possibly look for on these. So anyway, I think that's it. I think that covers everything that I wanted to say about the shoe. It's all positive. It just kind of outlining, I think, really just kind of comparing the negative things that I said in previous videos, you know, kind of all the failings of any other flat shoe. This one solves them. It's what I've been looking for. I'm happy to be involved with the shoe. I'm happy to be able to continue to promote it because it's the best. And that's all there is to it. So if you did like this review, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.